This plant right here is yarrow. That's this leafy one. It's just getting ready to start doing a flower. But the yarrow plant is completely medicinal. It's one I add to my cold and flu. It also will stop bleeding really quickly. It's a great plant for those sources. So this is right now the yarrow is just in leaf. It's just getting ready to start putting out a flower. This plant here is sagebrush. If you get really close here, you can see that it has a three-toothed leaf. You see that right there? How there's like 3 tooths in it. That's sagebrush. And there are some benefits for that. That you can use that medicinally. There will be a post on the blog about that. It's a new one I've found, but here's the little seed pod right there. But that is sagebrush. We'll come over here and you can see right here on the edge of this creek, we have some shave grass. You can see it coming right here. This one right here. It's coming up. You pick that, give you a better look at it. So it looks like that, and then as the season goes on, it'll get bigger. This plant right here, this is also the same plant. One's male and one's female. And so I usually let it get a little bit bigger than that before I harvest. Usually I want it to be about like this size. And then I can harvest it, and I just bundle that up and then hang it upside down to dry. And then I can use the shave grass. Shave grass is really high in silica, which helps with being limber. It also helps with cleaning out toxins from the body, especially heavy metals. So that's one of the things that we can do with the shave grass. So it's very beneficial in that manner. Okay, we'll continue on the walk. This plant right here is called shepherd's purse, and it is harvest time for shepherd's purse. It's really great plant to help stop bleeding. You can also eat the leaves at the bottom like you would spinach. Let me see if I can get down to the base of, we'll pull one of these up. So you can see that the leaf here at the bottom looks kind of like a dandelion leaf, but then you get up here on the top, you get this pretty little bloom, and then you have these little seed pods that are shaped like a heart. Shepherd's purse is good for the heart, and it is, at this time, it's time to harvest the plant. It can be harvested now, and then again you could just pull it up and bundle it and have it all ready for use. I'm going to take you into my garden for a minute, and we'll look at a few of the plants that I have brought in. Most of the plants that I use I harvest from the wild, but there are a few that I chose to bring into my garden. This beautiful plant right here is called comfrey, and it should be harvested before it goes to flower, and it's getting to that point in time. It's not, it could be harvested now. It is just getting ready to start setting flowers right here. You can see that it's just beginning that. This gets really large. It's a big, beautiful bush. And when I harvest comfrey, I usually just reach down in and pull off some of these lower leaves. So I'll just pull the leaves off like that. Then I can lay them flat to dry, or they can be put in a tea fresh. Comfrey is great for broken bones. It helps helps the body to heal. Do not use it for a puncture wound, but for any other healing that you need, if you have scrapes or any kind of bruises or broken bones, it is an excellent herb to use. It's high in vitamin B12, in C, and in E. It also will help with to soothe sore tissues, and it can be used as an expectorant. So that's my comfrey. And then here next to my comfrey, I have lavender growing. It is not in flower yet. You harvest the flower on lavender, and I use that for lots of different things. It's very calming to the body. So that's one that I choose to grow. You can see I have a rhubarb also growing right here next to it. And then over here I have thyme, which has lots of good medicinals, as well as it's great to use in your cooking, but it's very helpful in healing as well. And then this one here is my peppermint. I have two different varieties of peppermint. This one is a chocolate peppermint, and this one is just a peppermint. I'm not quite sure what the species names are. I will let this peppermint get a little bit taller before I harvest it, but I do like to harvest it before it goes to flower. And then here is another very wonderful medicinal plant. This is our lovely dandelion, and it's growing here in my garden. Dandelion, especially, the whole plant is edible. The root is what I usually use the most of for the medicinals that the root gives. Dandelion can help with PMS. It's high in vitamins, A, B, C's, magnesium, iron. It's good for the kidneys. It also will help the liver to produce bile. It's a plant you can use if you're struggling with jaundice or hepatitis or constipation. It's an inflammation buster, and it's just really a good plant to use. When I was a kid, my mom would have us go pick the dandelion flowers. So we'd just pick the little flower off the dandelion, and then she'd deep fry them, just batter and deep fry them, which we liked quite a bit. The young leaves can be put in a salad. They are bitter, or they could also be added to a green juice. But the root is usually, when you harvest the root, you want to get as much of it as you can when you dig up the plant. And the root is really good for those livers, and I usually do that in a tea or a tincture. So that's my dandelion. And I'm just going to kind of wander here through the garden. We're just getting it planted and getting things ready to go. So now we will move on. Here's another common plant that you'll find in the garden. This is mallow or malva. It's also edible. It's really mucogenic, so it's good if you've got mucus. It'll be soothing to the throat to add the root of this plant to the tea. And so it's one that you usually, when you're weeding your garden, you'll be pulling some of those out, so you can save those roots and use them there. So this is alfalfa. Alfalfa is another nutritive herb. It's a great herb to use. I use that in my nutrient blend just for overall health, and adds lots of vitamins. So it's just a good one to use that way again. So let me harvest it, and you can harvest that anytime. I usually like to harvest it before it starts to flower, but if I need more later after it's already flowered, I can harvest it then too. And then again, just reach in and cut these leaves. So I'll just pick them. So we can cut the leaves and then bundle that up as well. So now I have a nice little bundle, and so this herb is yarrow. You can see it's kind of growing among the grasses here. It'll often come up in lawns, but it's this fine leafy plant down here. I'm going to go ahead and pick one of the leaves and pull it up so you can see it a little bit better. Get the grass out of that. So that is a yarrow leaf. It's very feather-like, and it doesn't flower till a little bit later in the year, but it can be harvested anytime. Both the leaf and the flower are medicinal and good for cold and flu. It will also stop bleeding. It's a wonderful herb. Sorry, my video kind of cut out on me. So here we are at our next plant. It is a teasel. The teasel is again harvested in the spring of the second year. It's a biennial plant. The teasel root is good for, it's a nervine, and so if you use the root, it helps with that. And then also, teasel is the leaf you can use to take away the sting from stinging nettle. And then right here, I have some plum trees. These are wild plums. They don't have medicinal value, but they are a wild edible. And I have many of these that grow on my property. So we can make all the plum jelly that we want. Also makes a nice sweet and sour sauce. Our next plant we're going to talk about is nettle, or stinging nettle. You can see this one right here growing, starting to get kind of large. This is a nice patch of stinging nettle. So like I said, the teasel will take the sting away from the stinging nettle. So obviously you want to use gloves when you harvest this plant. I'm going to get up really close. You can kind of see the leaf and the shape of the leaf on this plant. It is a nutritive herb. So I usually will take and dry this. It's good for allergies because it's antihistamine. It's beneficial for high blood pressure. It's got lots of minerals and vitamins in it. So it is a really super nutritive herb that's good to have. You can cook the leaves like you would spinach. So once they're cooked, they won't sting anymore. Or you can just dry it and add it to tinctures or teas. So it is a wonderful nutritive herb that we can use. This plant is called hound's tongue, and it is a wild version of the comfrey. It gets those nasty little pickers in it, but it can be used like you would comfrey, but I would only use it as an external herb. Now I'm going to take you over and show you a wild elderberry tree or bush. They're often much more bush-like when they're young, and as they get older they get some pretty good trunks on them and become a nice big old elderberry tree. And I have several of those that grow here on my property. I'm kind of self-taught when it comes to herbs. And so as I learn about different things, that was one of the plants that I wanted to make sure I had, but I wasn't sure I could recognize it. So I went out and bought one. And then as it started to grow, I'm like, oh, I have that here. We have others. So I have some in my garden, and then I have some here. This is an elderberry. You can see this is a really old elderberry. You see how thick and wide the trunks are on this tree. But this is also the young shoots that come up from the bottom, so it continues to produce that way, and it gets at the top, you get these higher shoots. But this is an elderberry tree, and it's not blooming yet, but it will. Elderberry and elderflower can both be used, usually for children when they have a cold or flu. I'll use elderberry and elderflower. Here's another elderberry right there. It's just a nice long stem, and then you can see the smaller shoots coming up at the bottom. They continually to shoot up new younger shoots. But it's an excellent cold and flu remedy herb. I usually mix it with peppermint and yarrow if I do the elderflower, or we often also will do a daily elderberry just juice to have with us. This little plant right here is a catnip. It's a nervine. It's great for teething or colic in babies. So you can use catnip or catmint, for either of those. And I do have a post from Organic Emily that talks a little bit more about its uses. This plant right here is a burdock. See, it has a big leaf, and as it gets older, it gets an even bigger leaf. And then when it's a two-year plant, and we usually harvest it in the spring of the second year or in the fall of the first year. Burdock is another one of those plants that's really good for your liver. It helps cleanse the body. It just cleans you out. It's also good for PMS. And this one, you dig up the root for the medicinal, and then you roast that. I usually chop it up and then roast it, and then I just put it in tea. And it is an excellent plant for helping to cleanse the body and to heal the body of many ailments. Okay, moving on to the next one. This next plant is one that I discovered last spring, and I have been so pleased to discover that I have many plants growing on my property of this. This is called Lomatium. It is the best antiviral. It is also often called biscuit root. This one is a very fern-leafed biscuit root. You can see how the leaf is very fern-like. Then it has this little yellow umbel flower on it. The root to me kind of tastes like potato, like a raw potato. And so does the tincture that you make from it. But this is one that's even good for Ebola. It's good for just about anything viral any virus that you might come. It's like one of the most powerful ones out there. It helps with meningitis and Epstein-Barr virus. Its best time to harvest it is in the late summer, fall, so July, August time, after it's gone to seed. So this will come up and it'll have a pretty umbel. And so I will bring out some little flags and put them around the plants that I want to harvest this fall. And then I will be able to find them more easily come fall and when it's time to harvest. So that is Lomatium, and I have been so excited to find so much of it growing on my property. Okay. We have a lot of alfalfa right here on the hillside. A lot of it grows. Most of it we just let our cows graze, but when we want to use some medicinally, we harvest a little bit in the spring before we turn the cows out into the pasture. Here you can see we got some more Lomatium scattered along this hillside. There's a really nice patch of it here, just kind of all through there growing. I hope that you're able to learn much about herbs, and that if you find one that you have growing on your property or that you have a lot more desire to learn more about, feel free to ask questions or to seek out and find what you need for your health, because sometimes I think the Lord provides and we don't even know it's growing right there, right beside us. Here's some more plum trees. I have a lot of wild plums. This one here is a hawthorn, and hawthorn is an excellent tree for the heart. You can right now is the time to harvest the leaf and the flower. The flower and the berry are the most potent. It's good for high blood pressure, for any heart ailments. It just helps the heart to heal itself. It's an excellent herb, and it's kind of this is a really small limb on a little tree, but it can grow a pretty good sized limb on the tree for use. The hawthorn is definitely a heart tonic herb. I usually tincture it. They come in red, orange, or black. It's a protector of the heart. It's restorative. It improves heart function. It increases the blood flow, strengthens the ligaments. So it's an excellent herb to have and to help keep your heart healthy. And it can be taken on a regular basis, on a daily basis, up to, certainly up to 3 teaspoons. You can harvest the flower and leaf, and then later add the tincture from the berry, and so you have a super powerful heart tonic if you do it that way. And we'll move on. We have a few more hawthorn bushes up here that you can see. Just growing along the creek bank. Another thing that we do in February each year, we tap these little maple trees that you can see right over here. Both our maples and our box elder trees. We'll tap those for syrup. So we'll tap and get the sap out and then cook it down to make a maple syrup from it. And it's been a really fun thing. It can be done in our area, but you aren't going to have a business of it because production is much smaller here, because our weather window isn't quite ideal. So that big beautiful tree there is a maple, and we will tap that for syrup every year. Here's another hawthorn, and then I have this cute little tree right here. Let's see. Can you see the pretty little flower on that? It's kind of just getting ready to start opening their blooms. Let me pull some down a little closer. So this is a choke cherry, and the choke cherry produces berries, but the medicine is the inner bark, and you want to harvest that after the cherries are ripe and ready to eat. And then you can take a limb and just peel the bark off and cook it down into a syrup like you would elderberry syrup, and then add your cherries to it to give a nice cherry flavor to it. So they're a really pretty tree, and they grow wild all over the Utah and Idaho area. And there's another hawthorn. These ones here are poplars. In the early spring, when the leaves are first starting to bud, you can pick those buds and make balm of Gilead, which is good for pain. The poplars are known for their ability to help with pain. So that's one of the things that's good for. This plant right here is a teasel. This is just a young teasel, and you can dig that up and just grind up the teasel, the root, the whole thing. And that is also a good nervine. And then it also, the leaf, if you break the leaf up, it will, and rub it after on a sting after you've been stung with stinging nettle, it will take the sting away. We have just a few more. We'll show you on our walk. This tree right here is a big box elder tree, and we also tap it for syrup. The box elder sap or syrup tastes a little more like butterscotch. So the syrup from the box elder tree is kind of a little butterscotchy, and we really enjoy that. It's kind of a fun syrup to have. Just opening a gate here. We'll come through and show you just a couple more that I wanted to make sure you got to see before we're done with our walk. Here I have a bunch more maples and a few more hawthorns growing in this area. And there's a big chokecherry tree right there. Last year we tapped several of our trees, and we managed to get 20 quarts of maple syrup, which was kind of exciting because that was a really good production of maple syrup for us to use. Oh, here's a tiny little chokecherry. So cute. One thing, look at this pretty little chokecherry in there. See, that one's in full bloom. The blooms have all opened up really nicely. And this little plant right here, but I'm coming up here in this area for one special little plant that is called Oregon grape. And they were blooming the other day, but it looks like the blooms are just about done. So this is the Oregon grape plant. This is the one that grows in the mountains. It's a low-lying, it's not very tall. It has a very connected root, spreads out through this whole area. And they get a little berry on them, which I often will put in jams and jellies. But this plant, the medicinal is usually in the root. And I'm going to just break a little piece of this off. So if you look, you can see how yellow it is right there, the inner bark. So the inner bark and the root can both be used as long as you get to this yellow part. So you can see, if I peel this back just a little bit, it's very yellow, that inner cambium layer. So Oregon grape has got lots of benefits. It's a substitute for golden seal. It has the berberine in it. It helps the liver to produce bile. It's a digestive. It helps with blood sugars. It's an antibiotic. It's also high in antioxidants. And so it's the yellow layer in this plant from the root or the inner bark. If we can scrape that back and find this yellow layer, it's this yellow part that gives us that medicine. But that can be used easily in that way. And that's, I think that's it for our walk. I hope you enjoyed it.